All right, happy Friday night. Uh, excited that we are back live on Friday nights again. uh, back 2 weeks in a row. So excited that you're all popping on here. Give everybody a few seconds. Gonna start out here just with a little happy Pi Day video since it is March 14th. So today's 3/14. So today's happy Pi Day. Hope everybody had some pie today for Pi Day. So happy Pi Day. Wanted to talk tonight a little bit about this concept of ETV. Starting to see a lot of people I've seen a lot of people lately make comments that they are doing ETL in Power BI. And I'm like, no, I don't think you are. So I would love to hear your all's thoughts on this topic. Do you think that ETL can be done efficiently and effectively in Power BI? I have my own thoughts. Hey Nikhil, hey Rada, uh, Rita. Hey everybody. So let me know that you're here. Say hi. Let me know, for those of you that are new to the channel, let me know where you're from. Um, and, you know, and as always, pop in, ask questions. Let me know what's going on in your data journey. So, so the thing that I've been talking about here lately on LinkedIn past few days and wanted to talk about tonight here is again this concept of doing ETL in Power BI, and I've kind of reframed it, right, because I do think that there is a use case for this. I think that there is definitely a use case for this. I think especially for people and business units that may have people that have Power BI skills that have gotten in, maybe migrated from using Excel into Power BI, which is an awesome upgrade to your skills. Um, and it, but I also have concerns about its scalability, right? And so uh, I see more and more people popping on. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the stream. Let me know down in the comments what you think about doing ETL in Power BI. I would love to hear your thoughts, your comments. Again, happy Pi Day to everybody. But so I've seen, a lot of people say, I'm running ETL in Power BI. And I'm like, no, you're not. Are you doing something useful? Absolutely. But what you're actually doing when you're doing, ETL in Power BI is really more ETV, right? You're extracting data from wherever that source is. You're maybe doing some transformations using um, DAX or M in Power BI, and then you're visualizing, but you're not actually loading that data anywhere, right? So let me know. Yeah, I think I think that's accurate. It's less than 100,000 rows. When you start approaching a million, like Access, I really think that like Access, when you start approaching a million records, things start to break down. Things, efficiency wise, and you're going to run into some costly compute issues when you have Power BI data sets that are refreshing and doing all of that work every 5 minutes. Some Power BI data sets refresh every 5 minutes, every 30 minutes. Your cost is going to quickly run up. So, uh, like I said, I want to hear your thoughts. Continue to share your thoughts in the chat. Uh, I think that I've set the chat in this screen to be so that you all can see the chat as it comes in as well. And so, but let me know down in the chat. Yeah, all right. Access it, it, and that's my concern. Right? Is Power BI gonna become the Microsoft Access of 2025? Right? You know, there was And before everybody is like, but Chris, access has its place. Absolutely. Especially for, business units that can't get the attention of their data team, or can't even get on a calendar to get on a, in a project room with a data team, in a, any type of scrum meeting with the data team. it Access, Power BI, absolutely. You use the tools that you have available to you to get done what you need to get done for the business. um, but access for a lot of data people is a hassle. Because so many business units will create these custom Microsoft Access databases, and there's some brilliant person on their team that probably should be on a data team somewhere, and the OG distributed as a file database. Yes, absolutely. Um, Absolutely, Nathan. Um, so many business units, uh, find somebody that's brilliant on their team, that is, again, probably should be in, um, in a data team somewhere, have gone out, done some amazing things with VBA, with Access, and with Excel, and really created some sometimes pretty crazy things to get, what they needed done for their business unit. And then eventually those things, that person leaves. This is what happens. That person leaves, something breaks, something changes, and then all of a sudden this tool that was created with duct tape and bubble gum uh, isn't sustainable, because nobody's there to make the change that needs to be made, and it's become something that was 1999, right? Yeah, also for me around that time. um and it and it's not sustainable, right? It has to be, all of a sudden it's become this tool that is mission critical for that business unit, and it's probably run great for 5 years, sometimes 10 years. I've seen these things run, and then it has to be scaled. It has to be moved into a production environment by a engineering team, and a data team, and and that's the same thing that's going to happen with your Power BI reports that you're completely doing. This ETV, like I said, extract, translate, and then visualize, um, in Power BI, all in Power BI. It When you're doing all your data cleaning and everything in Power BI, eventually you run into some scalability issues. Um, so yes, Query is amazing. People have used it in Excel. Uh, right, get to Power BI your way into understanding data. Um, but so for those of you that may be new to data still, ETL is extract, transform, and load, right? Um, and a lot of modern data architectures are doing it a little differently, right? They're doing extract, load, and then transform, right? Especially if you're in the medallion architecture and you're putting things into a data lake, um, to transform later. So a complete ecosystem, not a few. Yeah, not just a few O'Reilly books. That's awesome. Yeah, 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 I like that. Mm. Ooh, I like that. There should be a business data engineer position. I think that there was a time. Hmm, rant. Yeah, yeah. There was a time that business units would hire a person as a project manager, as a project coordinator, that actually served as the business unit's data engineer. Um, I've seen it. I've seen it happen. Oftentimes, business units will, open up a position. they'll figure out, oh, hey, this person's really great with data. We're going to hire them as as our business data engineer, essentially, right? And personally, I think that is an awesome opportunity for somebody that is trying to get into data engineering. And those are the types of people that serve as junior data engineers, right? Those are were our junior data engineers, and I think still continue to be. I think that those positions are just kind of hidden amongst the noise. Um, my personal opinion. So, but yeah, I'm a plus one business data engineer too. I like that one. Uh, be a BDE. Um, yeah, I like that. So, so yeah, those are the kinds of things. Yeah, you have, you know, business data engineers essentially, in these business units that have created these access databases, created these Power BI, you know, files and workflows that are doing a lot, extracting from sources, directly from sources, doing some transformations, again, either in M or in DAX or both, and then doing the visualization straight out of the box. It's like cooking an entire meal and serving it straight from the pan while it's still hot. It's kind of crazy. So I I bet Nathan, I know from your conversation here that that you've definitely run into this. You know, who else have Nathan? Maybe this question's for you and to anybody else that's out there. Um, have you ever built, you know, a full blown data platform, data, you know, project in Access or Power BI? Uh, I'd love to know. Um, Interested to see who else has done that. Because I'll say that early on in my career, I definitely used Access and early, like before I was anything, like it was in high school, used Access to do some data stuff. But yeah, love to know. So love to hear you. Never full blown. Yeah, I mean, it just doesn't scale well, right? I mean, it just doesn't. It's not sustainable. Doesn't scale well. So maybe that's next part of the conversation here is when is this ETV concept, right? Um, only what it takes to me. Yeah, yeah. Like only when absolutely necessary, right? I think that that's true. So ETV, I do think that these things definitely have their place, right? Again, I think that when a business unit just can't get the attention, can we ever balance design with no, not ever. We can not ever balance design and deadlines, um, Nathan. Not ever. Um, so, what do you think the data transformation in Power BI that data analysts do is really data cleansing or just a final step of cleansing? It, I I like this question. So, I think that generally when a analyst gets the data, hopefully, um, they're getting it from a process that a data engineer has already done. That data is already cleansed. That a lot of that transformation that the business analysts are doing are applying the business logic, right? it, I think that sometimes it's like final tweaking of the data for aesthetics, right? Translating things that maybe are in maybe wording needs to be a little bit different for end users to be able to understand, or for a specific group of end users to understand, categories, types of things like that. um, but I don't think it's really data cleansing. I think that generally data cleansing is entirely um, too heavy. I think for Power BI. Um, hey, welcome to the channel. Um, Several new people tonight. Thanks, guys. Thank you all for joining, and for my guys that I have been here. I always appreciate you all jumping on. Um, but I think that yeah, I do. I think that generally it's really just a final step of cleansing. I think it's just some final tweaking, some final fine tuning of category names or um, uh, or sometimes applying some business logic that's specific to the project that that analyst may be working. But great question, awesome question. Um, Again, because I think that when I think that's part of the problem when you have groups that are or somebody that's trying to do all of that transformation, all that cleansing and everything in Power BI, it becomes so intensive. It's so labor intensive on compute intensive on Power BI to do all that in that space. It, it can become costly really quick, especially with Fabric, right? Just is. But again, I do think that there's a place for it. I think that you know for quick prototyping of hey, this is what my visualization is going to look like for small scale, maybe departmental reports. Again, business units that just can't get on a schedule to get their project greenlit to get it done. Uh, business teams bypassing maybe some data backlog that again can't get on the schedule. But and again, this is a huge but has its limits, right? you know Again, just like back in the day running an access database with a million records, when you start approaching that million, 10 million record type situation with Power BI, it becomes super labor intensive, compute intensive for Power BI to crank through all of that transformation within Power BI. And it's doing it every time it refreshes. And it's costing your company that much money from compute every time it refreshes. So it's, it's like trying to run a Power BI report, um, trying to run Cyberpunk 2077 on a 1998 compact, right? Computer. It's not. Hey, Gene. Um, it's just not sustainable. Uh, so, what's the worst Power BI scenario, solution that you've ever seen? What's the most painful thing you've ever seen somebody do in even in Access or Power BI? I've seen some crazy stuff out there over the years. I'd love to hear from you all. Let me know. Let us know down in the chat. I know that Nathan, you've probably seen plenty of things too. Um, so when does Power BI doing all your cleansing and transformation in Power BI become a problem? We've touched on this a lot. So this is a good question. What do you mean by costly for computing? You know, cloud computing, but how does it work with Microsoft BI? Isn't Power BI hosted locally on your machine? So there's a couple situations here, right? There is the situation where you have Power BI desktop and you've created a local report that you're manually refreshing. Um, yeah, I'd love it. Yeah. See, Nathan's it, um, so it So you have, I'm sorry, a couple situations. You have, the situation where you have Power BI hosted locally on your desktop. You've created your visualization Power BI desktop. You're refreshing it locally, um, and maybe you're actually physically sharing that file, that PBIX file, with a few other people. No big issue there, right? The issue comes in when you're using, Power BI Pro Power BI Premium and or you're in Fabric, right? You're hosting your report in Microsoft Fabric, and what happens is you get you're paying so much per unit of compute, right? And you're paying Microsoft so much per unit of compute, and now um, and so you're caught it all that compute that occurs every time that Power BI report's refreshing. And because you've put in all that transformation into your Power BI report, is costing your company money. Um, and versus doing it at the time that you're loading the data, right? Via an ETL process that occurs once when that record gets put into your data warehouse, and then Power BI is just pulling it, right? And all that transformation, all that overhead is occurring at that moment and once, as opposed to all that transformation occurring every time the report refreshes. So hopefully that kind of gives you a glimpse of what that looks like within the Microsoft ecosystem. Um, but yeah, Power BI is usually, like Nathan's saying, usually hosted um, on a cloud platform, right? In a Power BI workspace, and yeah. Um, so, and I'll say that. Oh, here, and to Nathan's point here, it it entirely depends on how you're accessing the data. If you're accessing data via like a local network, and it's on a on-prem SQL server, or your a lot of times what people are doing is they are sometimes physically exporting CSV files from a system, placing them in a network drive, and then that Power BI workbook is accessing those CSV files on that network drive, doing some transformations, and then visualizing that data. And so those cases, um, it there's you're not using that cloud compute, but most of the time you're accessing a an Azure SQL server, or you're accessing Synapse, or you're accessing Delta Lake, and in those cases, you're using compute at the time that you're pulling. It's almost like double dipping, because especially if once you publish your Power BI report to the cloud, that compute is running by pulling those queries from that data, and then your compute is running to do all the transformations in Power BI. It starts to get expensive quickly. Um, Thank you for your response. As a data scientist student, are imputation, normalization, encoding, etc., part of the data engineering role? I think normalization, encoding to it. It so depends on the role. Uh, that's a big question. Like Nathan's saying, a lot of that, is kind of the new machine learning AI stack. But normalization, encoding, imputation, it you have to know that, I think, for to be a data, and you don't have to. It really heavily depends on the position that you get. I've been in some positions where I am doing so much, almost everything is Python. So understanding like OOP, understanding, which is object oriented programming, right? Um, and so in those cases, understanding imputation is important. Normalization is absolutely something you have to understand as a data engineer. Encoding, especially with increased governance and increased regulation, is something that you're going to need. Um, those are important things to know. Um, Very active tonight. Thanks, guys. Data engineering is vibe, y'all. Shepherding data into digital processing. Yeah. Um, it- it's one of those things where a lot of the times It's you are doing it however it some again it depends heavily on your role. If you're in a Databricks heavy environment, then you're primarily going to be in PySpark, right, and Python. um, if you are in an environment where it's heavily like Informatica or ADF or something like that, then you're using kind of the low code, no code type pipeline tools, and you could lean on that. Um, I've been in situations where everything's Python, putting it into Docker containers, putting it into Elastic repositories, and using like lambdas in AWS to on S3 triggers to trigger those uh, Docker containers. So really just depends. Power BI can be a gateway to data warehouse once you start bumping into gateway to a data warehouse once you start bumping into slow reports under higher than expected costs. Yeah, it could be. You have to. uh, so great conversation, guys. Thank you so much. What else do y'all have going on tonight? Okay, I love cloud container. I really love Databricks, but aside from Databricks, I love either way, it's Python, right? I love writing Python scripts using Docker containers to containerize it, and then putting it into Elastic repositories. I feel like I have more control, um, and better uh, unit testing that way than I do using some of the other pipeline workflow type tools. Python, yeah. Uh, so that's my preference. Um, there are a couple other things I want to touch on the ETV stuff. So when does ETV become a problem? When it scales beyond a single user or team? When an analyst become accidental DBAs uh, because you don't have any indexes all of a sudden. Um, when it replaces proper data governance and security, you see that you see business units working around security and governance by doing this, and just like people were doing with access. um I'm talking like Nathan, like doing asserts, right? uh, Doing asserts in Python to make sure that your initial data matches what ended up landing into your table, into like your staging table, right? um it I'll share a quick story. Sorry, try not to be too wordy on this one, but a quick story where this week, one of my contracts, I work with Informatica, and um, we with Informatica, sometimes you don't get error messages when, yeah, prints and asserts, yeah, for testing, making sure that things transform and land. It are very crude. Uh, but anyways, my story about Informatica. Informatica is not really great about telling you when a record doesn't load, right? And the situation I had where I was loading all these historical files, and they were Excel files, just because of the nature of this company. And there was one record from these 25 Excel files that I was loading from each of the records, or from each of the files, that wasn't loading. But Informatica said everything was passing through to staging just fine. The only way I knew was afterwards. I was comparing the file's number of records in the file to the number of records that landed in the table, and they were off by like 25 records out of all of them. And so I had to go through and hunt for that one record in each of those files that was missing. And ended up it was something stupid. There was a comma at the end of a customer name, and that customer had one record in each of the files. And it, it was something. What is ETV? Could be your new vehicle. Uh, so Bulbasaur, can you tell me more about what data warehouse means? Honestly, sorting this out. And asserts are very crude. Um, so yeah, so ETV becomes a problem. Is it the modern day Microsoft Access? I think it could turn into that, right? You start small, it works great, and then suddenly IT discovers there's a massive, mission critical, a business critical Power BI data set sitting on somebody's laptop that nobody knows how to fix it because that person's gone now. That person left 3 months ago and they're gone, and it's broken today. So what do we do now? um, it these things happen. These things happen all the time. So what's the right approach? I'm not saying don't use Power BI for any transformations, like we talked about earlier. um, you know it, Power BI has some useful things that you could do for transformations, right? And you could do some business logic in it. You can do some kind of fine tuning of, aesthetic type things, translating some things. Um, but, you know, if you need a quick proof of concept, it's awesome. If you need, especially if you're trying to get a project greenlit, um, if your data set's super small, it's not mission critical, it's very specific to your business unit, and you just can't get on that, data team's schedule to get anything going, um, then cool. But if you're going to need some scalability someday, and whether it be users or data size, if you're going to require some type of data governance and security regulation, there's regulations around a lot of this data, or if you need long-term maintainability, you need an actual ETL ELT process that is created and maintained by your data teams. uh, it's one of those things where ETV's great until it's not. And again, ETV is kind of what I've coined: extract, transform, and visualize. So, environmental technology verification, maybe could be again could be your new what is it? Extra terrain vehicle. Um, so, yeah, my own ETV is not an official term for those of you that are on. It's something that I've kind of labeled this, and so important for data leaders or managers, or to have experience as data engineers, or have some sort of this. Yes, I mean, I think so. There's been a recent trend where they put leaders without any data knowledge into positions, into director level and higher positions, and they don't have this background, don't have this um, knowledge, and that's it. That could be. I could see where there's maybe some benefit to it. Um, we'll go with that. Maybe there's some benefit to it. Especially people that are really strong leaders, have a really solid foundation of business acumen, understand what the where the business is going, but um, also it's you run into things like all of a sudden there's $100,000 Snowflake bill, or Databricks bill, or Azure bill that could have been avoidable if there was a leader in that position that had that background. Um, Something akin to observability, but very visual. Um, I've also seen solo analysts build up many Power BI reports in an org with no data team. There is a limit to the scale of working like this. Yes, yes. But if you don't have a data warehouse, you don't have maybe you have a lake house. Maybe you're doing again that medallion architecture, and maybe you have Delta Lake, um, or maybe you're doing things in a manner that is very similar to Delta Lake, and you're using Synapse, or maybe you're using S3 and Redshift, whatever the case may be. Cloud data warehouses such as BigQuery or Postgres database dedicated for analytics. Yes, and when I was in AWS, we used an RDS, Postgres database, right? We also had a Snowflake database, but that's a story for another time. But yeah, I mean, I think that an RDS Postgres database can be uh, used for that situation for a cloud data warehouse. I think that you run into some situations where you need to probably at some point maybe migrate to a Databricks or a Snowflake. That's something bigger. That's something that is a little bit more robust than Postgres, but definitely you definitely have time when you're in like an AWS RDS situation. Um, did I miss? Oh yeah, the leader. I agree. It's an awesome. It is absolutely a great point. The importance of having really core data concepts, and I think a solid foundation in cloud computing and cost optimization. I think that data leaders need to have a good background, a good foundation in an understanding of cloud compute and cost of cloud compute and how that translates. Because I'll say that not all of your vendor relation people in with Microsoft or Databricks or Snowflake are going to be real good about explaining to you how quickly that cost can accumulate. Going to do an internship with a company that uses Synapse, and they said there's a job titled data consultant. Do you think the job is about data engineering or a mix of jobs? I would bet that it's a mix of jobs. Um, I mean, data consultant. I've never seen that in a corporate environment. Like they'll hire data consultants um, to come in and do consulting, right? Come in and explain to and kind of help them to navigate down a certain path and explain to them the pros and cons of different situations and make a suggestion for what their architecture should look like. Um, and that's something that I've been in those types of situations, but I generally, as a data consultant, you're there for architecture guidance. You're there for cost optimization guidance. You're there for telling them the direction that they need to go and how to do things, as opposed to actually being hands-on doing the work. Okay, so this Postgres has some tables to feed into Power BI and some BigQuery info piles into data sources. Yeah, my drink's gone. Yep. Awesome. Again, great conversation tonight, guys. This is awesome. Okay, so look at my notes, make sure I covered all the things that I wanted to cover. Small scale, not mission critical, Power BI. Yeah, I just think that it's the Microsoft Access for the 2020s, 2030s, maybe, as we get moving along. Yeah, and I think there's a place for it. I just think that um, you quickly run into scalability issues and compute cost issues. All right. Well, now, for those of you that have been around before, this has been a very interactive session, so super excited about that. But now is the time that we just get into the point where I've covered what I wanted to cover. We talked about it being Pi Day. I'm going to stop my screen sharing there, make me a little bit bigger. I don't need any help being bigger, but now's the time that we what other questions are out there? What other we've had some great questions. TMBX asking about the data consultant role. Nathan, have you heard? For those of you else that are anybody else that's out there that may have been around for a while. I keep on calling on Nathan just because I know that he's been around, been around the block. So, have you heard of this data consultant role in in an actual like permanent position? Happy Pi Day. Uh, I mean, I've never heard of it as a permanent position. Again, I think that generally it's like it's a contractual type thing, or you're providing a service. Nathan, man, how's your project going? We're starting to lose people because I'm being quiet. What happens when I go? Oh, so for those of you that are new, many cocktail parties, even happy hours, have to work in a place where I'd overhear such talk. Yeah, I mean it. Yeah. Cool. Well, what approaches do people have for data tests? I mean, from my point of view, I it, it entirely depends on the company that I'm working with and the situation. But I like to use Python to do asserts, right? An assert really just compares one data set to another, right? One data frame to another, and make sure that they're the same. I like to do counts. I like to test on counts. I like to, pull the data source from both systems, from both the source and kind of my landing zone, whether that be staging or um, like a medallion, if it's medallion model, wherever I'm landing that data, just to compare and make sure that um, you know the right number of records landed. I like to pull those into data frames using Python and do a describe, just so that I can see, okay, the numbers kind of match, are in line, whether because a describe in Python will give you information like the mean and the median, and kind of the 75th, 25th, 70th, 75th, and 100% percentile of different numeric fields. But that's an awesome question. There's definitely have seen some really robust testing and seen some very kind of bare bones testing. Um, project going nice. That's awesome. Okay. Um, old default, yeah, like Nathan's saying, old default is kind of row counts, making sure that things match. Um, based on the exact same query. Um, yeah, it run against backups, older states of the data, just at the time range. Again, I like to do these certs. I like to, when I'm testing things in Python, I do a lot of print statements just to make sure that at each stage things still look the same as you're doing different transformations, and that things look the way that they're expected to look. Especially when you are, a lot of times you're doing something where you're maybe migrating from a business unit that has been doing it manually in Excel to putting it into your data into a data warehouse and then creating some visualizations on top of that. But in those situations, you're oftentimes pulling in all the historic data, possibly for several years, and you'll have old reports to compare to, and you can compare what your output is to the outputs in those reports. And so, I do that a lot when that is the situation, um, just to make sure that the data is the same. And sometimes I'll say that even when you do that, you find that the data is different, and it's different because they were doing it manually and they missed something. And so your calculation is doing it in a consistent, non-manual, programmatic way. And so sometimes your results are more accurate than what has historically been reported on. And sometimes, honestly, that's a discussion that you have to have with your leadership too, of, hey, I know this is different than what you've seen. However, based on our analysis, this is the accurate number. Um, Mainly custom setups. The DBT has, something like DBT just for testing capabilities in pipelines, even if not used in model of the data. It absolutely, DBT is an option for companies that are using DBT. That's not always the case. Not only is it not always the case, it is you're probably still looking at maybe 30% of companies out there using DBT. Um, so it's not going to be a high percentage. If you walk into a company that's using DBT, that's an awesome option. Um, my experience is that that's not usually the case. My experience is you're going to have to figure out how to do some testing, and if you want to go in a programmatic way, then you try to create some Python scripts to help you with some of that work. But let's see what Nathan's got. I'm gearing up for a test with DBT, which only means I added it to my, yeah. So that's my feedback there is some companies have DBT so that you could use it, and some most are not going to have that functionality. You're going to have to come up with something. You're going to have to figure out something on your own. And I like Python for it. I mean, if you don't have DBT, I like Python for it. And you could even build, like I've built a class and some functions that that do it, that do my testing, and I just give it what the data sets are, and it goes through and gives me some kind of some logging information about those two data sets to compare the data sets. It could, but most places are going to frown on you using a tool that's not whitelisted by the company. Sometimes you can do things. It doesn't mean that. So DBT is a tool. It's pretty SQL heavy, um, but it does mainly transformations. But there's some unit testing that you could do with it. Um, Again, how do I explain this? Um, in a corporate environment, if DBT is not a tool that you've been told that you could use and you use it, you are at risk for being written up, for termination, uh, because you're introducing vulnerabilities, and that could be argued, right? But in their minds, you're introducing vulnerabilities that have not been evaluated by the company and have not been um, firewalled off by the company. You could fight it, but it's easier to just not put yourself in that situation. And for those of you that are out there that have worked in corporate environment before, that have a different experience, um, then let me know. I'd love to hear people that say, yeah, that our company didn't whitelist DBT and I used it anyways and it was fine. Um, but I'm telling you that you're potentially walking a tricky line there. A/B testing, CSV, importing pandas, polars. Yes. Yeah. If you're using just the Python library, again, um, when I worked at AT&T, we had a specific repository that we could import libraries from. And if it wasn't in that, we had to send in a request to have it added. And then they had to add it, and there was a lot of red tape there. And once it was added, then cool. But if it wasn't already there, there was a process. There was a process set up to request it. Is how would you like to DBT? Like always run a data flow. Stuff for work related data. Yeah. Yeah. I'm just saying, corporate environments can be tricky. I would just make sure that you're, especially if you're just moving into a company, if you're new to a company, if you are um, new to data engineering, I would make sure that you get yourself into a position where you're a trusted resource, that you're a trusted employee before you try to walk that line. Um, and if it is a tool or resource that you feel passionate about using, even if you're just walked into a company, um, I would find out what that process is to get that whitelisted so that you can use it. Um, that's my it's my 2 cents. But yeah, I mean, if you have some situations, some companies don't have that situation, like at AT&T. More fun than a little access. It is more fun than a little access. Um, I'll say that some companies uh, are like AT&T, where they've walled off the company and brought everything kind of inside. I mean, even at AT&T, we even had like our own version of ChatGPT within the firewall, right? And it was secure, it was protected. We could access it from within the VPN, and we couldn't access it from outside the VPN. They had a repository of libraries that we could pull for Python. There was a lot of walling off. Now, I'll also say that it doesn't mean that people didn't turn off their VPN, log into their computer without the VPN, just access their internet and install stuff, especially if they had admin rights to their machine. So I'm not saying that didn't happen. I'm saying that if you're going to do it, you're walking a line that is likely being monitored. And if you're not in a position where your boss trusts you, and that you have kind of set your stake that this is you're a needed employee, then I'm just saying be careful. That's all. I'm just warning. Just a warning. That's all. Sorry for the rant. And I'll say that I was probably one of those people that disabled my VPN. That's why I know it can be done. So so yeah, that's my 50 cents probably. So what other questions are there out there? This has been an awesome conversation. I've really enjoyed it tonight. For those of you that may be new and that are still around, we do this at 10 p.m. Eastern time on Friday evenings. I usually come with a conversation topic that I start out with. We get to a point in the stream where I've talked through my piece, and then we just kind of take whatever questions are out there. So usually about an hour ish, sometimes a little over. Yeah. But yeah, thank you all for being here. I appreciate it. And if anybody's ever interested in in collaborating and doing one of these together with me, if you have a topic that you want to talk about and you're excited about, then I'm happy to host that and to facilitate that and bring you on a Friday evening. So extract, transform, visualize. That's my ETV. It sounds like the new vehicle from Ford. Buy the Ford ETV today. Okay. We can do that. What is 2 weeks from now? Why did my calendar not come up? 28th. What is the 28th? Oh, 28th is the day that the horses are coming to our barn. For those of you that don't know, this is a little personal information about me. And not at all data related for those of you that are interested. We are building a barn. So I've spent a lot of this week. We've built most of the barn. I spent early in the week putting up insulation. So inhaling a lot of fiberglass. And then the end of which is maybe why my voice is a little rough tonight. But the end of the week, laying down hay from where we put down grass seed. Today we staked out the fence for where the horses are going to go. The insulation was because my wife's office is going to be in the barn as well. But super excited about the barn. I only say that because 2 weeks from now is the 28th, and I think that 10 p.m. on the 28th will be fine. I don't foresee any issues. Um, but 28th is also the day that the horses are being brought from where we're having them stalled now to the barn. So, and Nathan, man, I'm always happy to have you. Uh, Laying hay. Oh man, it was. It's been a week. It's been a week. It was spring break this week, and it's the first time my daughters we've not gone like on an actual vacation for spring break during while my daughter's been in school, and so she's like, "This is boring." Yeah, I think the 28th will be fine. Um, let's plan for the 20 or shoot for the 28th, Nathan, and then I'll let you know if something does if it does look like it's going to be a no go. But I think the 28th will be fine. I love having Nathan on. For those of you, clearly Nathan is very active in our conversations and has some amazing insights and information. He has a great exciting project that he's working on. Um, yeah, she will. She'll understand when she's older, and she'll look back and she'll love it because my father-in-law lives right there too. We own 15 acres beside his property, and so she's got to spend time with Papa too. So it's good opportunity. Yeah, pencil it in, and I'm super excited. Again, I'm always happy to have you on. So for those of you that are still here, Nathan's going to be on in a couple weeks to hopefully talk about his project and what he's got done. And super excited about that. Uh, always excited to have somebody else on with me, especially Nathan. And yeah, if there's ever anybody else that wants to jump on with me, you could shoot me an email. You don't have to do it in chat. Feel free to shoot me an email. And for those of you that don't know, we also have a Discord channel. And I could share the Discord. Well, I could have shared the Discord channel. The Discord channel link is accidentally hit update Discord instead of grabbing the link. But the Discord link is in the information on the main channel as well. There's a link there that you can grab. But yeah, feel free to. It looks like somebody. Oh, Leo. Leo joined this evening. Super excited to have you, Leo. Newbie data engineer also joined over the past week. Super excited. Thank you very much for joining. It's not real lively yet. I've been trying to put stuff on there and encourage conversation. It's been a little bit more lively than it has been, but we'll get there. I think more people come, but always feel free to jump on the Discord and ask questions. I've created several kind of channels within the Discord for SQL discussion, Python, general data concepts, AI. But yeah, very cool. Well, again, we are nearing the top of the hour. If anybody out there has any final questions, comments, thoughts about my new ETV designation for those that are doing Power BI ETL, which is they're not loading it anywhere. They're just visualizing. Not just visualizing, they're visualizing, which is, and I'm not discounting the work that goes into that. There's a lot of work that they have done to get to that point, but just not scalable, in my opinion, in my honest opinion. So, and then several of your honest opinions, looks like. So, appreciate it. All right. Well, again, thank you all so much for joining me this week. Excited that you came. Again, join the Discord if you haven't yet. Excited to let me see if I could get the Discord link here real quick. Where'd it go? Invite people. Not want to expire. Never. No limit. Generate. Nathan, thank you for being here. Again, I always appreciate appreciate you, and thanks. I mean, I was like, that's not ETL, that's ETV. Um, I think it was. It's been a great chat. Thank you, Bulbasaur. Um, it's been a great chat tonight. I love doing these. I hate it when I miss it. Um, so I appreciate you all jumping on. I know that you take an hour out of your weeks. A lot of you are here like every week, so I really, really do appreciate it. And really, if there's anything that I could do to help you, if you again, I'd love to facilitate having you on one of these um, sessions. And I did this new restream that I'm using instead of the one that I was the platform that I was using allows me to have multiple people. So if there are people, if you want to get together and have a bigger conversation, and we could do it live on one of these, it's like a weekly stand up. Um, Especially since I keep on bugging you about, hey, how's your project going? Um, so these are always great chats. I love having you all on. I love when people jump on and we really have these lively conversations. Thank you. Yeah, we could do a multicast with my new platform here. We could do a multicast. I could have, I think, up to like 10 people join. So we could have several people on at the same time and actually verbally and visually talk to each other. So, um, thank you. Uh, so super excited to have y'all. Super excited about the new platform. Again, if anybody wants to jump on live one of these sessions, uh, happy to facilitate that for you. If you want to jump on and show a project that you've been working on that you're super excited about, let me know. We could jump on. You could show off your project. You could get feedback from everybody, and I'll give feedback, and it'll be great. So thank you, Nathan. You are one of my biggest recruiters, I think. So, and really, I not discarding everybody else that has been vocal and shared tonight, but Nathan, you really, I appreciate you. You really are super in these. Like, yeah, like a lightning talk. That would be awesome, right? To have like lightning talks, lightning rounds of, hey, we've got this going on, and give everybody like 10 seconds to sound off like they do on Sports Center. And wouldn't that be cool? Hey, this is the subject, and we could have it, just like Sports Center, and have like 5 or 10 different subjects that everybody gets like 30 seconds, and we move on to the next person. How cool would that be? I'd love to. That would be fun. That'd be a good time. We'll have to do that. I think that would be neat if we could get enough people to be like, "Hey, yeah, I want to do that," even if it's just me and Nathan. But I think it'd be cool if we had like 5 or 6 people. That maybe not five. It starts getting too big, right? Maybe 4 people. Human intelligence assistant. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I like it. I like it. Keep on trying to take a drink, and there's nothing in there. Awesome. All right, guys. Well, it is 10 after 11. It's been a long week for me putting together a barn. But I look forward to talking to y'all next Friday. Uh, yeah, some kind of limit. Probably like 4. I think 4 would be good. I think when they do it on Sports Center, there's just 4 of them. Um, yeah, I think I think it'd be super exciting. No matter how many people, if I could get. Um, oh, thank you, Tangent. Tangent. Did I say it? Welcome. Thank you very much. Um, for those of you that didn't get to watch my videos this week, um, the ones that I put out are Fix It Now, which is just talking about kind of how to troubleshoot, some different situations of how to troubleshoot, how to break things down. Uh, Put one out on SQL hacks. Labeled it SQL hacks you should never use, but really it's kind of talking about, okay, here's some things that you should that are great to use, and here's some things that are not great to use. And then obviously we do the Friday evening AMAs. On Monday, I'll have one that I am editing now that is about how to communicate to non-technical stakeholders, kind of what that looks like, and how to communicate your technical side of your job and your project to non-technical stakeholders. Um, and I have a couple others queued up as well. I'm going to talk about upcoming are I'm going to talk about data contracts and what data contracts are. Um, and yeah, I'm going from junior or senior. Oh yeah, I can do that. Yeah, recently I did. For those of you that hadn't seen it yet, recently I did one on moving from an analyst to a data engineer role. But this would be great as well. I'm gonna write it down right now. Going from junior to senior. Turn G, correct. Thank you, Nathan. I really do appreciate that. Um, I really do. Hopefully, people find. I am so excited that people have found value in what I've been doing and putting out there. It really, that's why I do it. I'm for those of you that don't know, uh, we do have 1,862 subscribers. I'm incredibly astounded and honored and all the emotions um, that we have that many people as part of our community on the channel. It continues to grow, and it it I'm I'm not for those of you that don't know, uh, Facebook, YouTube. It had part of the requirements to be monetized is you have to have over 1,000 subscribers, which is clearly we have that, and you have to have 4,000 watch hours within 12 months, and so haven't reached that point yet. I'm at 1.6, um, 1,600 watch hours over the last 12 months, most of which have occurred over since December, um, and which means a ton to me, really. I mean, I'm super excited that you all are watching it. Hopefully, helping you're finding value in it, and I really do appreciate it. Thank you for watching, and thank you. I hope you are getting value out of it, learning out of it, and that you're able to grow into the positions that you're wanting to get into. And you know, for those of you that don't know, I also do consulting on the side. Or I do data consulting for companies, and that, and then I also do mentoring on the side. Mentoring is $35 a session, so it's not super expensive. But I found that when I charge, that there's a little bit more accountability, right? So the $35 is not um, for anything other than I found that people are more hold themselves more accountable when they're paying for it, even when it's not a ton. So, but if you're interested in any of that, let me know. Shoot me an email. Um, there's an onboarding assessment that I ask that you fill out, and there's a on the website, which is gambledataengineering.com. There is a explanation of what the mentoring program looks like. So Awesome. Again, thank you all for being on here. Uh, Taranjeet, thank you so much for joining us this evening. Um, and I appreciate the both the idea, the video idea. I'll definitely start scripting that and start putting that together. And thank you for joining tonight. Thank you for speaking up. Awesome. Well, if there are no further questions, I'll let you all get back to it. If there are any last questions, pop them in there real quick. Um, but aside from that, it is a quarter after 11, and I'm going to let you all get back to it. Give everybody about 5 seconds to type anything in if they want to type anything in. All right. Well, thank you all so much for joining me on a Friday evening, and I hope to see you all again next week.